Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I'm 30 years old. Nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the moment I watched my older sister Megan slap my 8-year-old son Oliver across the face at our 4th of July family barbecue. And even worse, my father, Charles, smirked and said, "Well, maybe now he'll earn some shame," while my mother, Brenda, chuckled along like it was some kind of inside joke. They thought no one would remember it, that it would just disappear into the noise of the party. But they forgot about the documentary Mike, my uncle, had set up to capture the legacy of the family. Everything, every word, every crack in their perfect image was recorded. But before I tell you how I held my family accountable and dismantled my sister's golden pedestal, let me take you back to where it all started, long before my son was ever born, back to my own childhood when I was always the difficult one. Growing up in the Campbell household in Asheville, North Carolina, I was never the favorite. That honor was reserved for my sister Megan. Megan was everything our father, Charles, wanted in a child: smart, poised, a natural competitor with a sharp tongue, and the kind of ambition that steamrolled anyone in her path. She became his shadow, echoing his values, his mannerisms, and even his dismissiveness. I, on the other hand, was like our mother Brenda in looks but not in behavior. While Brenda played the obedient wife and peacekeeper, I was the one who asked why. I questioned unfair rules. I stood up when Megan belittled me. So naturally, I was the family problem. At every holiday, every school event, every gathering, it was clear I was the disappointment. "Vanessa just doesn't know how to act," my mother would say with a trained sigh whenever I dared to speak my mind. Not like Megan. And Megan would just smile, that smug, tight-lipped smile, like she knew exactly how perfect she looked standing next to my supposed flaws. By the time I turned 16, I had developed what I can only describe as emotional armor. I didn't cry anymore, and I didn't argue either. I just stayed quiet, did my chores, and waited for the day I could finally leave. That day came faster than I expected. At 18, I started college at a small university in Raleigh and met Kevin, a business student with a warm smile and a calm presence. He was everything my family wasn't: gentle, supportive, and most importantly, he made me feel seen. We fell fast and hard. I was 20 when we got married. Too young, perhaps. But I was starving for family, for stability, for love that didn't come with conditions.
So I dove in.
Of course, my parents attended the wedding with forced smiles. They criticized everything. My dress was too simple, the location too casual, and the vows too emotional. Megan came in a designer outfit and gave a toast that made the room laugh awkwardly when she said, "I always wondered what kind of man would take on Vanessa. Now we know." But Kevin didn't care. He kissed my hand and told me he loved me, right in front of them. For a while, I believed I had escaped it all. We moved into a modest apartment, I worked part-time and finished my degree in communications. Kevin worked in accounting and we made it work. We were happy. When I found out I was pregnant at 24, I cried tears of joy. We were finally building the family I'd always dreamed of. Our son Oliver came into the world on a cloudy Wednesday in April, 7 pounds, full of energy, with Kevin's sandy brown hair and my green eyes. I held him and made a silent vow: "You will always know you are loved. You will never question your worth the way I did." For a few years, life was good. Kevin was a wonderful father, and Oliver was a curious, affectionate little boy. But then, when Oliver turned 5, Kevin started complaining of chest pain. I pushed him to see a doctor, but he kept saying he was too busy. One morning, he collapsed on his way to work. A heart attack.
Gone. Just like that.
My world shattered. I was left to raise Oliver on my own. I didn't tell my family the full extent of my grief. I simply said Kevin had passed from a heart condition. I knew what would follow if I showed too much vulnerability. And I was right. When I reached out for help once for school supplies, my mother sent a check and a note: "You should have been more prepared." Megan never needed help. After Kevin's death, I took a job as an administrative assistant at a local marketing firm, Bright Path Communications, in Asheville. It barely paid enough to cover rent and daycare, but I made it work. Sometimes, I had to swallow my pride and ask my parents for help with things like car repairs or medical bills, but every time I did, it came with comments like, "Megan would never let herself fall behind like this." Through it all, I kept my focus on Oliver. He had a passion for drawing, especially people. He'd sit for hours sketching me, his teachers, even strangers at the park. He once told me he liked to draw what people were really like, not just how they looked. He was sensitive, expressive, and never afraid to speak his mind, so unlike the child I had been. When the annual 4th of July barbecue invitation came from my parents that summer, I hesitated. I hadn't attended in 3 years. Too much tension, too many cold smiles and veiled insults. But Oliver begged me. "I want to show everyone my new drawings, Mom. I made something really special." I told myself, it's just one day. I can handle one day, for Oliver's sake. How wrong I was. As the 4th of July approached, Oliver grew more and more excited. Every evening after dinner, he would sit at the coffee table with his colored pencils and sketch pad, working diligently on a drawing he refused to let me see. "It's a surprise," he grinned, cheeks flushed with pride. "It's for everyone at the barbecue." I made one big picture of the whole family. His innocent enthusiasm both warmed and worried me. I tried to keep my anxiety in check as I packed our overnight bag and loaded up the car. My friend Amanda, my rock since Kevin's passing, raised an eyebrow when I told her we were going. "You sure about this?" she asked, arms crossed. "Your family's never exactly rolled out the red carpet for you. Or Oliver." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I know. But he deserves to know where he comes from, even if I have to act as a buffer the whole time." Amanda shook her head. "Just promise me you won't let them make you feel small again. And if anything feels off, anything, you call me." "I promise," I said, though even then I didn't believe it. Because deep down, I already knew what was coming. We pulled into my parents' house just after 10 a.m. The street was lined with cars, flags waved from porches, and the scent of grilled food drifted through the humid summer air. Their white colonial-style home stood tall and proud with fresh bunting on the porch and a big banner out front that read, "Campbell Family 4th of July Bash, 35 years strong." Oliver clapped from the back seat.
Mom, look.
Balloons. His eyes sparkled with excitement. I forced a smile and unbuckled him. "Come on, let's go show everyone your surprise drawing." As we walked up the driveway, I spotted Megan, my sister, standing by the front steps in a crisp red sundress, chatting with some of our extended cousins. Her posture perfect, her hair professionally styled. She looked exactly like the magazine cover version of success. Vice President of Client Relations at a top financial firm, living in a sleek townhouse, and still unmarried. Megan had built her image precisely. And she never missed a moment to remind everyone of it. "Vanessa," she called out as we approached, her voice laced with artificial warmth. "Look who finally decided to join us this year." I forced a polite smile. "Hey, Megan." "And this must be Oliver," she said, crouching down. "You've gotten so big since I last saw you."
What are you now, 5?
8. Oliver replied firmly, then added, "I brought something to show everyone." "Oh." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. How adorable. My mother Brenda appeared at the door then, arms open in greeting. "There you are. We thought maybe you changed your mind." She kissed my cheek without warmth and turned to Oliver with a performative gasp. "Is this our little artist?"
Come in, come in."
Everyone's in the backyard. Inside, the house buzzed with noise. Relatives arranging food on long folding tables, children running between rooms, and my father Charles holding court in the kitchen with a whiskey glass already in hand, talking politics with my uncle. He barely glanced up when we entered. We were directed to the smallest guest room, tucked near the laundry area with no windows. I helped Oliver unpack his crayons and sketchpad as he asked, "Do you think Aunt Megan will like the picture?" "I think you should be proud of it, no matter what anyone says," I replied carefully. "It's your truth. That's what makes it special." Out back, the lawn was set with rows of chairs, a bounce house for the kids, and a huge barbecue station manned by catering staff. My father was mid-speech when we stepped outside, boasting about Megan's latest promotion to a circle of aunts and uncles, leading a $3 million portfolio. Can you believe it? He grinned. We always knew she had it in her. I said nothing. This was par for the course. I spotted Paul, my father's sister Linda's husband, setting up camera equipment near the patio. He gave me a subtle nod. A former documentarian turned teacher, Paul had been roped into filming a family legacy video to honor 35 years of the annual gathering. What my father hadn't realized was that Paul had placed wireless microphones around the house to capture candid, natural conversations. Capturing memories, he'd explained to me discreetly. That day, he would end up capturing far more than that. As the afternoon wore on, the event unfolded as expected. Competitive banter. Passive-aggressive comments. Megan accepting compliments with rehearsed humility. I kept Oliver close while he mingled with the other kids, quietly observing more than engaging. Most of his cousins were a few years older and clearly cliquish, much like their parents. When Oliver tried to talk about his drawing, most shrugged or ignored him. Finally, during the early evening, after dinner was served and plates were cleared, the moment came. Oliver stepped to the center of the patio, clutching his sketch pad. I made something, he called out cheerfully. Dozens of eyes turned toward him. He carefully unfolded a large piece of paper and held it up with both hands. It's everyone in the family. I drew all of you. He walked around, proudly showing different groups their portraits. Some laughed and clapped. Others were puzzled by how accurately he captured their expressions, sometimes too accurately. Then he reached Megan. And this is you, Aunt Megan, he said, handing her the sketch. Her expression froze. In the drawing, Megan stood tall, dressed sharply, holding a stack of dollar bills in one hand, and in the other, a pointing finger. Her eyes were shaded darkly, her mouth downturned in a stern expression. Above her head, Oliver had drawn a small text bubble that said, "Do better next time." It was innocent, honest. Exactly the way Oliver perceived her, strict, powerful, always judging. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then Megan's voice cut through the air, sharp and cold. What is this supposed to be? Oliver looked confused. It's just you.
How you always say that.
You know, when people mess up. Megan's nostrils flared. Is this some kind of joke? You think it's funny to mock adults? To embarrass your own family? I started to rise from my chair, but I was too slow. With one swift motion, Megan reached out and slapped Oliver across the face. Hard. A sharp, sickening sound cracked through the quiet. Oliver stumbled backward, the sketch pad fluttering to the ground. Time seemed to stop. His cheek turned bright red within seconds. His eyes welled up with tears, not just from the pain, but the shock, the humiliation. My chest seized. Before I could move, my father said loudly, "Well, maybe now he'll think twice before acting like a smartass." And my mother added with a light laugh, "Vanessa never did teach him proper respect." I flew from my seat and knelt beside Oliver, gathering him in my arms. He was crying silently, shoulders trembling. "What is wrong with you?" I hissed, glaring up at Megan, who stood rigid and unremorseful. "He's 8 years old. He's old enough to learn some humility," she snapped back. "Maybe if you weren't so soft, he'd have some manners." From the corner of my eye, I saw Paul. He had gone still, pale, clutching his audio recorder. I realized instantly he had it all. The slap, the insult, my parents' comments, every word recorded. I stood up, Oliver in my arms. "We're leaving," I said quietly but firmly. "And no one lays a hand on my son ever again." "Oh, stop the theatrics," my mother scoffed. "It was just a tap." "A tap doesn't leave a handprint," I said bitterly. "And a child's honesty is not an insult. But your reaction, that's the real shame." As I turned away, I saw Megan sneer. "Running away again, Vanessa? Typical." I didn't look back, because I knew something they didn't. The game had changed. And I now had the proof to hold them all accountable. I carried Oliver to our room, his small body limp against mine, his cheeks still blazing red from the impact. He wasn't sobbing anymore, just breathing in shallow hiccups, the kind that stab a mother's heart because you know they're coming from shock more than pain. I sat him on the edge of the bed and went into the bathroom to wet a washcloth with cold water. When I came back, his eyes met mine, confused and aching. "Mom," he whispered, "was I bad?" That question shattered me. It was the exact same one I used to ask myself growing up in that same house, after being told time and time again that I was too loud, too sensitive, too much. "No, sweetheart," I said, kneeling down and gently pressing the cold cloth to his cheek. "You were not bad. You were brave. You told the truth in your drawing, and it scared them. That's not your fault." "But Aunt Megan hit me," he said, his voice breaking, "because she didn't like what I drew." "She was wrong to do that," I said firmly.
So were Grandpa and Grandma.
No one has the right to hurt you for telling the truth." He nodded, blinking away fresh tears. "Are we going home?" "Yes," I said, rising to grab our bag. "We're leaving right now." As I packed with trembling hands, a soft knock came at the door. My whole body went rigid. I moved in front of Oliver instinctively. "Who is it?" "It's Paul," came the hushed voice from the other side. "Just me." I cracked the door open. Paul stood there, eyes haunted and serious. "I got it," he said. The slap. Megan's words. Your parents' reactions. All of it. I was right next to one of the mics. I already downloaded the audio. My breath caught. "You're serious?" He nodded. "I can make you a copy right now before anyone makes me delete it." I opened the door wider. "Thank you, Paul. Really. You don't know how much this means." "I do," he said softly. "I married into this family. But I've never seen anything like what happened today. Not even close." We agreed to meet at my car in 20 minutes so he could pass me a USB with the recording. After he left, I called Amanda. She answered on the second ring. "You okay?" "Wait, don't answer that." "What happened?" "Megan hit Oliver," I said, my voice cracking. "She slapped him across the face because of a drawing."
What?
"And my parents," they laughed, "defended her." "Oh my God. Vanessa, please tell me you're already packing." "Almost done. Don't go back to your apartment. Come here."
Now.
"They don't deserve to know where you are." I nodded even though she couldn't see me. "We'll be there soon." I turned to Oliver, who had curled up on the bed with his sketch pad hugged tightly to his chest. I crouched beside him. "Hey, buddy," I whispered. "We're going to go stay with Aunt Amanda for a while, okay? You're safe now." He nodded, his voice small. "Okay." We left quickly. I avoided the backyard and slipped out through the side door. But just as we entered the foyer, my mother appeared, arms crossed like she had been lying in wait. "Where do you think you're going?" she asked sharply. "Home," I said, not stopping. "Unless you think we should stay after Megan assaulted my son." "Oh, please," she scoffed. It was a slap. "You're making a scene over nothing." "Nothing." I stopped and shifted so she could see Oliver's cheek, still glowing from the impact. "You call this nothing?" For a brief second, something flickered in her eyes. Regret, maybe. But she quickly buried it. "Children bruise easily. You're blowing this way out of proportion." Behind her, my father appeared, arms folded. "Vanessa," he said with cold authority, "stop this right now. Sit down, have a drink, and we can talk like adults." "There's nothing left to talk about," I replied, gripping Oliver's hand tighter. "We're leaving. And you don't get to play peacemaker after watching your grandson get hit and laughing about it." "If you walk out that door," he said, voice low and threatening, "don't expect any more help from us. No more checks. No more support. You'll be on your own." And there it was, the old leverage. The financial noose they'd tightened around my neck for years. The subtle reminders that my independence was conditional and my dignity disposable. But not this time. "Keep your money," I said flatly. "It's not worth this." As I opened the front door, Megan came strolling in from the living room, bourbon glass in hand. "Running away again?" she sneered. "It's all you're ever good at." I looked her dead in the eyes. "The only thing I'm running from is your delusion that you can hurt a child and get away with it." She took a step toward me. "Is that a threat?" "No," I said calmly. It's a promise. Paul was already waiting at the edge of the property, standing near his car beside a cluster of pines that partially shielded us from the rest of the house. He slipped a USB drive into my hand. "It's all there," he whispered. The slap. Megan's insults. Your dad's shame comment. Your mom's laugh. Every word. "I won't let them know it came from you," I promised. He nodded. "Just be careful. They're going to come for you." I knew he was right. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel afraid. I felt ready. The drive to Amanda's place felt longer than usual, even though it was only 40 minutes away. Oliver had dozed off in the back seat, his sketch pad still clutched tightly in his lap, but I could tell his sleep was uneasy. His lips twitched, his eyebrows furrowed, and every so often, he whimpered under his breath. I gripped the wheel tightly, replaying everything in my mind: the sound of the slap, the silence that followed, the way my parents had laughed. A storm had started inside me, not of fear, but of fierce, unshakable resolve. This time, I wasn't going to let it go. Amanda was waiting outside when we pulled up. She rushed to the car and opened Oliver's door, her eyes scanning his face. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. "Come here." He stirred, blinking slowly as she gently unbuckled him and helped him out. I grabbed our bag and followed them up the stairs. Amanda had already set up her guest room with fresh sheets, a small lamp, and a couple of picture books. She didn't ask questions right away. She just held me tight while Oliver curled up on the bed. Once he was asleep, we sat in the kitchen. I placed the USB drive on the table between us. "That's it," I said softly. "It's all on there." Amanda plugged it into her laptop, and we listened in silence. The sound of the slap echoed clearly through the speakers, followed by Megan's voice dripping with disdain. "Both of them are useless." Then my father's comment about Oliver needing to learn some shame. My mother's laughter. It was all there, captured with chilling clarity. Amanda's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God," she said when the recording ended. "Vanessa, this is abuse. It's not just about a slap, it's the whole mindset." They enjoyed it. "I know," I said, tears stinging my eyes. "And now I have proof." She looked at me. "So, what are you going to do?" "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. "Part of me wants to go to the police, but I know how these things go. They'll say it's a family dispute, or that I'm exaggerating." Amanda nodded slowly. "So, what's the plan?" I glanced down the hallway, where Oliver slept. "The plan is to protect my son, to make sure he never, ever doubts that he deserves better than this." Over the next 2 days, I put that plan into motion. First, I took Oliver to his pediatrician, Dr. Rachel Moore, who had been treating him since he was a baby. I explained what had happened and asked her to examine the fading bruise. She documented everything and gave me a written statement. "This wasn't just a disciplinary slap," she said gently. "It left a physical mark and emotional trauma. I'd also recommend he see a child therapist." She referred us to Dr. Erin Collins, a psychologist specializing in childhood trauma. When I met with Dr. Collins, she was warm but direct. After her first session with Oliver, she sat with me and said, "He's experiencing clear symptoms of acute stress, sleep disruption, withdrawal, and anxiety around female authority figures. This incident deeply unsettled him." My stomach sank. "Will he be okay?" "With time and the right support, yes," she assured me. "But make no mistake, what happened to him matters. And your response matters just as much. He needs to know he's safe." I nodded, more determined than ever. The next stop was a legal consultation. I met with Lisa Patterson, a friend from college who is now a civil rights attorney. I handed her the audio file and Dr. Moore's statement. After listening, Lisa leaned back in her chair. "In terms of criminal charges, it's murky. Family incidents like this often are. But in terms of civil liability, Megan and potentially your parents are exposed." "I'm not interested in money," I said firmly. "I want accountability. Real consequences." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Derek, sorry Megan, has a high-profile job, right? Financial services?" "Yes," I said. "She's a vice president at Whitestone Financial. She also mentors students and sits on a nonprofit board for kids." Lisa's eyes narrowed. Well, then there are other ways to hold people like her accountable, especially when their public image matters. That night, back at Amanda's, I sat with the audio file and used simple editing software to trim it, not change it, just narrow it to the key parts. The slap. Megan's useless comment. My father's approval. My mother's laughter. I added no narration. I let their voices speak for themselves. Then I composed 3 carefully worded emails. 1. To the board of directors at Whitestone Financial, where Megan worked. 2. To the Children's Horizon Foundation, the nonprofit she proudly sat on. 3. To the Future Leaders Mentorship Program, where she mentored high school students. In each message, I explained who I was and included the audio clip. I wrote clearly, professionally, and respectfully, requesting confidentiality due to my son's privacy, but emphasizing that I felt an ethical obligation to share what had occurred, given Megan's involvement with children. I hovered over the send button for a long time. Amanda placed a hand on mine. Are you sure you're ready? I looked down the hall at my sleeping son. He asked me if he was bad, if he deserved it. That's all the reason I need. I clicked send. The fallout came faster than I expected. By the next morning, my inbox had exploded. One email was from Whitestone Financial's HR department, informing me that Megan had been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. Another came from the Children's Horizon Foundation, stating that Megan had been temporarily removed from her position on the board, in alignment with our strict zero-tolerance child welfare policy. And the third, from the Future Leaders Mentorship Program, simply thanked me for bringing the matter to their attention and confirmed that Megan's participation had been suspended until further notice. I barely had time to process that when my phone began ringing. First it was Megan, then my mother, then my father. I ignored every call, letting them all go to voicemail. But that didn't stop the messages. Megan's texts shifted from fury to panic within hours. What have you done? You need to fix this now. They're holding an emergency board meeting. I could lose everything. This was a private family matter. Vanessa. Then came my father's cold, calculated message. You've disgraced this family. You think this helps Oliver? You've made things worse for him. No decent school or job will take a kid raised by a vengeful mother. And finally, my mother's passive-aggressive plea. Honey, please. We can fix this as a family. Just call us back. You're breaking your father's heart. I blocked all 3 of them. Later that day, Paul called. They're unraveling, he said quietly. They know it came from the audio. They're assuming I gave it to you. Megan's threatening to sue for defamation. She's welcome to try, I replied, my voice steady. Truth is a complete defense against defamation. And everything on that recording is exactly what happened. She's telling people you manipulated Oliver into drawing that sketch to embarrass her, Paul added. That this was all part of some revenge campaign. I let out a dry laugh. Of course she is. It's easier than admitting she hit a child over a piece of art. What none of them realized was how deep this moment had reached. This wasn't just about Oliver. This was about a lifetime of being silenced, mocked, ignored. It was about the small Vanessa they had trained me to be, and the woman I had become despite them. A few days later, I received a message from an unknown number. It was Natalie, Megan's longtime roommate and friend, someone I barely knew, but who had always been kind to me in a distant, polite sort of way. Hi, Vanessa. I know we don't talk, but can we meet? I need to ask you something. In private. We met at a quiet coffee shop just outside Asheville. Natalie looked tired, haunted even. Her usual crisp appearance was replaced by puffy eyes and trembling hands clutching a paper cup. I heard the recording, she said as soon as Saturday Paul played it for Linda. Linda called me, and I don't even know what to say. I waited. I need to know, she whispered. Was this the first time Megan's done something like this to Oliver? Yes, I said. She's never laid a hand on him before. But her words? They've always been cutting. Natalie nodded slowly. She has a temper. I've seen it. She's never hit me, but there have been moments. She yells, breaks things. Once, she threw a wine glass across the kitchen. Said it was my fault she was late for a meeting, that I was a distraction.
My heart sank.
Natalie, are you safe? She hesitated, then said quietly, I told her I'm moving out. Staying with my sister for now. I need space to think. I'm sorry, I said, truly meaning it. I never wanted to blow up your life. You didn't, she replied. Megan did. You just gave the rest of us permission to stop pretending. As Natalie left, she turned and said, for what it's worth, I think what you did was brave. And right. That night, back at Amanda's, I got another call, this time from Grace, my supervisor at Bright Path Marketing. Hey Vanessa, she said carefully. I got a strange call today. Someone named Megan Campbell called HR asking about your employment status. Said she might need a reference for a project. Sounded off. My stomach twisted. She's trying to dig up dirt on me. I figured as much, Grace said. I didn't give her anything. But if you need support, you have it here. Take whatever time you need. Your job's secure. I was speechless for a moment. Thank you. Don't thank me, she said. Thank yourself. You've handled this with more integrity than most people I know. By the end of the week, Megan had been publicly shamed, demoted, and suspended from all the volunteer positions that had once been the pride of her reputation. What none of them knew, my parents, my sister, their smug circle of enablers, was that the wave they had started by striking my son had now become a storm they couldn't control. And it wasn't just me anymore. People were noticing. People were speaking. The momentum didn't stop. If anything, it intensified. Emails started pouring in, some from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Old classmates, colleagues, parents from Oliver's school, and even neighbors I barely knew. Most expressed outrage. Many shared personal stories of similar experiences, how they too had been slapped, silenced, or emotionally manipulated by family, and how it had been brushed off as discipline. Thank you for speaking up. You're not alone. I wish my mom had stood up for me like you did. I found myself part of an unexpected network, a quiet community of survivors who had, for too long, labeled their trauma as normal family behavior. Meanwhile, Megan's attempts to control the narrative backfired spectacularly. She reached out to family, friends, and work acquaintances, claiming I was emotionally unstable, that I had manipulated Oliver into drawing that picture, that I was using this incident to get revenge or money. But once the unedited audio began making the rounds, very few believed her. Because once people hear a grown woman slap an 8-year-old boy and call him useless, it's hard to explain that away. Then Paul called again. Vanessa, he said quietly, you're not the only one. What do you mean? Other family members have reached out to me. A few of them said they've seen Megan be physically aggressive with their own kids at past gatherings, grabbing arms too tightly, yelling, using cruel words. They never said anything because your parents always brushed it off. I closed my eyes, the breath leaving my lungs. This wasn't just about my child anymore. This can't go on, I whispered. We have to stop pretending this is just a family squabble. That realization strengthened my resolve. I began documenting everything, conversations, emails, dates, reactions. I wanted a complete picture of what happened not just to us, but to anyone Megan had harmed. In the meantime, Oliver was slowly improving. Dr. Collins noted progress in his therapy. His sleep was better, he was starting to draw again, and the anxiety attacks were fewer. But one moment cemented my decision to move forward boldly. 3 weeks after we left my parents' house, Oliver woke in the middle of the night crying. I rushed to his room, heart racing. What is it, baby? He clung to me, his voice shaking. I had a dream Aunt Megan was chasing me because I drew the picture. She wanted to rip it up and hit me again. I held him close, rocking him gently. She can't hurt you anymore. I promise. But inside, I felt something snap. I had spent years shrinking to fit inside my family's version of acceptable. I had tiptoed around my sister's cruelty, ignored my parents' favoritism, convinced myself I could protect Oliver by being silent. But that dream, that nightmare, proved I couldn't simply walk away. So I decided to take things one step further. I scheduled another appointment with Dr. Collins, asking for a formal report on Oliver's condition and its connection to the incident. She was already compiling it. His symptoms are consistent with acute stress disorder, she explained. Nightmares, clinginess, loss of confidence in his creative expression. These are direct results of trauma, not just misbehavior. She handed me a signed statement detailing everything. Next, I filed a formal police report. I sat across from Officer Jenkins at the Asheville Police Department, hands clenched in my lap as I recounted what happened. She slapped my 8-year-old son in front of the entire family. I have audio proof. I have a doctor's report. I have witnesses. He listened carefully, reviewing the USB Paul had given me. This is substantial, he admitted. Normally, cases like this don't move forward without physical injury or independent witnesses, but this recording changes things. He filed the report and promised to document everything. Whether or not it led to formal charges, it created an official record, something that would follow Megan if she ever tried to present herself as an advocate for children again. During this time, I kept hearing from my family, some to guilt me, some to shame me, and, to my surprise, some to support me. One call left me speechless. It was Catherine, my mother's sister. I was there that day, she said softly. I saw Megan slap Oliver. I didn't say anything, and I regret that. My throat tightened. Why are you telling me now? Because your parents are calling everyone, asking us to stand with them, to say you're exaggerating, making it up. I can't do that. What Megan did was wrong. And how they reacted, it's even worse. That was the beginning of a shift in the family dynamic. Other relatives reached out too, some apologetically, some in whispered texts, confirming they had witnessed years of favoritism, dismissiveness, and even moments of harshness they now viewed through a different lens. The Campbell family had long projected unity, respectability, and tradition. But behind closed doors, many of us had felt the weight of Megan's cruelty and my parents' silence. The facade was crumbling. Meanwhile, Oliver was returning to himself in small but powerful ways. He still asked before showing anyone his drawings. He still hesitated around raised voices. But one afternoon, while we were walking past the community center, he tugged my hand and said, "Mom, can I join the art club here? I think I want to paint something for real this time." Tears filled my eyes. "Of course, sweetheart. You can paint anything you want." And just like that, I knew.
He was healing.
About a month after the incident, just as life was beginning to feel calmer, I got a call from my grandmother, Gloria, my father's mother, and the Campbell family matriarch. At 87, Gloria was sharp as ever and rarely involved herself in drama, as she put it. But this time was different. "This has gone far enough," she said bluntly. "I want you, your parents, Megan, and the rest of the family at my house this Sunday. 2:00. I want to hear both sides of the story." "There aren't two sides to slapping a child, Grandma," I replied evenly. "Perhaps not," she said. "But I want to hear the truth with my own ears. If your parents continue this feud, it'll destroy the family. And I won't let that happen. Sunday. Be there." I didn't want to go.
But I knew I needed to.
Not just for closure, but for Oliver. For everyone who had stayed silent. For myself. Before leaving, I asked Dr. Collins if I should bring Oliver. "Absolutely not," she said firmly. "This is adult business. He should not be made to relive his trauma, or worse, watch adults minimize it." Amanda agreed to watch him, and I drove alone to Gloria's large, old Victorian home just outside Asheville. When I arrived, the tension in the room was already thick. My parents were there, sitting side by side on the stiff floral couch. My father's arms were crossed, his mouth a firm line. My mother looked down at her lap, dabbing at imaginary tears. Megan stood by the fireplace, arms folded, face puffy from lack of sleep or maybe crying. I wasn't sure. Her once impenetrable aura of confidence was visibly cracked. Natalie, to my surprise, sat quietly in a corner chair, hands clenched in her lap. Several aunts, uncles, and cousins filled the rest of the room, awkward and silent. Then Gloria entered. Despite her cane, she carried herself with a kind of authority that silenced the room. I've lived through 5 generations of this family, she began, voice strong. And I have never been more ashamed. My father opened his mouth to speak, but she raised a hand. Don't. Paul shared the recording with me. I heard it.
The slap.
The insults. The laughter. All of it. The silence was deafening. She turned to Megan. You struck a child. Your nephew. For drawing a picture. And then you insulted him and his mother. What do you have to say for yourself? Megan looked stunned. It wasn't a hard slap. He embarrassed me. Be quiet, Gloria said sharply. When a grown adult hits a child, the force doesn't matter. The power does. And you abused it. Then she turned to my parents. And you, Charles, Brenda. You laughed. You encouraged it. And when Vanessa tried to leave, you threatened her. How dare you? My father stiffened. Mother, if you'd just let us. Charles, she interrupted, her voice colder than I'd ever heard it. I raised you. I know where Megan learned this behavior. He turned pale. I saw how your father treated you, and I should have stopped it, but I didn't. I told myself it was discipline, just like you're telling yourself now. A deep, raw silence settled across the room. Then she looked at me. Vanessa, she said, her tone gentler. You did what I couldn't. You protected your child. And for that, you have my full respect. I swallowed the lump in my throat. But it wasn't over. Megan pushed off the fireplace and snapped. I've already been punished. I was suspended, demoted, humiliated. What more do you want from me? I stood, looking her in the eyes. I want you to acknowledge what you did. Not to me, but to Oliver. He still has nightmares. He stopped drawing for weeks. He thought he deserved to be hit. That's what you did. And what Mom and Dad defended. I didn't mean, Megan started. That's the thing. I cut in. You didn't mean to hurt him. You meant to control him. To shut him up. The same way you all tried to shut me up my entire life. But intentions don't erase the impact. My father shot to his feet. This is absurd. Derek made a mistake. It's Megan now, remember? I snapped. He faltered but continued. She made a mistake. But you destroyed her career over it. No, Gloria said, stepping forward. She destroyed it herself. Vanessa just exposed what was already there. My mother finally spoke. I can't believe you're taking her side, Mom. After everything we've done. I'm not taking sides, Gloria replied. I'm taking a stand for that child. For the truth. Which none of you seem willing to admit. Then, for the first time, Natalie spoke up. I'm filing for separation, she said quietly. Everyone turned to her. Megan's face went white. What? I can't keep pretending this is normal, Natalie said, her voice trembling but resolute. I've spent years ignoring the signs. But hearing you say those things to Oliver, seeing what you did, it made everything clear. This isn't about just one moment. It's a pattern, and I won't be part of it anymore. My mother rushed to speak. Natalie, every marriage has hard times. No, Natalie said. Not like this. Not when fear becomes routine. Not when emotional violence becomes the background noise of a relationship. What followed was 3 hours of revelations, confessions, and emotional breakdowns. Aunt Catherine admitted seeing my father discipline me too harshly when we were kids. Cousin Julia revealed that Megan once twisted her son's arm at a family picnic for talking back. Uncle Robert reluctantly admitted he had seen Megan shove a coworker at a charity event. The truth was no longer isolated. It was a web stretching back years. By the end, lines had been drawn, not based on blood, but on values. The Campbells were no longer united by name alone. As the family began to file out quietly, my grandmother took my hand and whispered, "It'll take time. But you've started something important. And I'm proud of you." And for the first time in my life, those words meant everything. In the weeks following the family meeting, the ripple effects continued to spread across relationships, careers, and reputations. Megan's company, Whitestone Financial, released a carefully worded public statement affirming their commitment to ethical conduct and family values, never naming her directly, but making it abundantly clear that they were distancing themselves from her behavior. She was officially demoted, transferred to a back-office, non-client-facing position with a significant pay cut. The golden child of the Campbell family had lost her shine, and for once, there was no one rushing in to polish it back up. Her marriage didn't survive either. Natalie filed for divorce 3 months after moving out, citing irreconcilable differences. But in our private conversations, she was candid. "I've had 2 miscarriages," she confided during one of our coffee meetings. "And now I wonder, did the stress, the walking on eggshells around her temper, the anxiety, did that have anything to do with it?" She didn't say it with bitterness. Just deep, quiet grief. As for my parents, they made a few half-hearted attempts at reconciliation. My mother sent an email inviting me and Oliver to dinner, pretending as if nothing had happened. My father sent a single message: "This has all gone too far. We need to move on." Neither offered an apology. Neither acknowledged the trauma. I responded with a boundary. No contact until you can acknowledge what happened and commit to treating Oliver with the respect he deserves. Simple. Firm. Final. They didn't reply. Instead, we focused on healing. Dr. Collins reduced Oliver's sessions to once a month after seeing steady improvement. His nightmares became rare, and his confidence began to blossom again, especially after joining the community center's art club. He loved it. He made new friends. He drew without fear. One sunny afternoon, while sitting across from me in our modest kitchen, he proudly held up a new painting, a bright, messy canvas filled with color, lines, and light. "This is me and you," he said, pointing to 2 figures holding hands under a giant sun. "And that's our safe place." Tears welled in my eyes. "It's beautiful." He smiled. "It's happy." And it was. For the first time, our home didn't feel like a holding space between survival. It felt like ours. A sanctuary. No more tiptoeing. No more bracing for cruel comments or emotional manipulation. Just peace. Around the same time, an opening came up at Bright Path Marketing for a project manager. I hesitated. Those positions usually went to people with more years or more degrees. But Amanda encouraged me to apply. "You've managed a crisis with grace, clarity, and leadership," she said. "That's what a real project manager does." I applied. To my surprise, I got the job. Grace, my supervisor, smiled during the final interview. "Vanessa, your response to your family's actions showed us your real strength. That's the kind of leadership we want here." With the raise, I no longer needed to rely on my parents for emergencies. That last thread of control was cut clean. Financial independence wasn't just survival, it was freedom. More unexpectedly, I found community in the very place I once feared: vulnerability. Amanda had connected me with a local support group for parents navigating family estrangement and emotional abuse. I shared my story there, at first in small pieces, and then with increasing confidence. Other women and men opened up, too. Their stories echoed mine: favoritism, manipulation, silence, and finally, action. Eventually, the group asked me to speak at a parenting workshop. I told them the story, not just of what happened at that barbecue, but of what led up to it. The silencing, the pressure, the need to protect a child's soul even at the cost of family ties. True strength, I said to the room, isn't in how loud you yell or how many people back you up. It's in standing by your child when they need you the most, even if it means standing alone. They clapped. Some cried. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just a survivor. I was a protector. A few months later, on a crisp October day, we hosted a small get-together at our apartment. Amanda was there, of course. Paul came too, with his 2 kids. He and Linda had separated, another quiet fallout from the family reckoning. Natalie attended, glowing with freedom. Some of my new colleagues came by, as did a few members of the support group. And then, surprisingly, my grandmother Gloria showed up, with my mother, Brenda, in tow. I hesitated when I saw them at the door. She asked to come, Gloria said gently. I told her this was your space, so you decide. I looked into my mother's eyes, tired, uncertain, but not cold. She wasn't here to pretend anymore. She was here to listen. I nodded. Okay. They joined us in the living room, where laughter and music flowed. At one point, Oliver tugged at my sleeve. Can I show everyone my painting? He asked quietly. I kneeled down. Are you sure? He nodded, eyes clear. I've been practicing. I tapped a glass and called for attention. Oliver has something he'd like to share. He stood by the window, holding up a new canvas. It was a simple scene, two figures holding hands again, but this time surrounded by more friends, a sun, trees, and music notes in the air. It's about being brave, he said, and drawing your truth even if someone doesn't like it. The room was silent for a beat, then filled with applause. Even my mother wiped a tear from her eye. He has a beautiful soul, she whispered. Yes, I said. He does. That night, after the guests had left and Oliver was asleep, I sat on our tiny balcony, the wind brushing against my face. The last 6 months had been the hardest of my life, and the most transformative. I had severed ties with people who refused to protect my child. And in doing so, I had protected myself, too. Megan's slap had been meant to silence Oliver. But it had done the opposite. It gave us both our voices. And in the quiet that followed, I finally heard what I had needed to hear all along. You were never the problem. They were. We can't always stop our children from feeling pain. But we can teach them to rise from it, with dignity, with courage, and with their heads held high. And if that means walking away from family to protect their light, then so be it. Because some ties need to be broken for healing to begin. And others, like the one between me and my son, can be rebuilt stronger than ever.